Welcome back to Talk of the Town.
Talking about the county budget, and like all of our budgets, there's certain discussions to be had about what's good, what's bad, what's fair, what can be cut.
What's ugly.
You know, and with the county budget, you know, we have a certain amount of questions about what can be cut. You know, if there's a bureaucracy, there's pensions, there's certain things that add to our costs that sometimes get out of hand. I know on the state level, there are huge problems. I know of a case where there's a state worker that I personally know who retired after like 30 years of service and ended up getting roughly $50 less in retirement benefits than he was earning as a salary. And he took that income and then moved down to Florida. He wasn't even spending it here in New York.
Yeah.
Well, you raise a point about fringe benefits and the cost of fringe benefits to Erie County. And this is one of the areas that we pay very close attention to in the spending plan, because fringe benefits, overtime, health insurance, pension costs, they escalate, and they're a percentage of someone's salary. And typically that averages about 56% of someone's salary. So if someone is making, let's use an easy number, $100,000, if you tack on the fringe benefit cost, it's $156,000 cost to the residents of Erie County. Now, of course, that's an inappropriately high salary. However, that's what we're paying in fringe benefits. Many times we look at, okay, what is that percentage in the sheriff's office? What is that percentage in Department of Public Works? What is that percentage across all of county government? And is that accurate? Sometimes we've seen those percentages are 60, 65%, and that's how we can make some corrections to the budget.
Are you really able to make those corrections to the budget when you move to make those corrections? You know, these folks have unions with a very strong lobby.
Right. And
you know, we have government employees who are paid by you and I, who, you know, are part of a union that sometimes I feel, even though they are representing us and being paid by us, almost as though that union is working against us.
Right.
Yeah, that's almost it's kind of a conflict of interest.
So how do you make that correction?
Well, those percentages and those numbers are negotiated in their union contracts. However, sometimes what's proposed by the county executive is not exactly accurate for what the percentages should be. So we can make those cuts. The legislature can only cut from the budget. We cannot add revenue, and herein lies the art of being a successful county legislator. If you're going to cut the budget, you have to make it balance so the revenues and the expenses match, and that's what we're starting to work on right now. Last year we did alter the fringe benefit numbers, made some changes. We were challenged on those changes, but it turns out we were correct. So those cuts that we made to lower the property taxes last year for the first time in 11 years were accurate.
And that was in Amherst only?
It was all across Erie County.
It was all across Erie County.
Yep. So every resident, all 925,000 residents of Erie County who own property, be it a business or a property homeowner, saw a decrease in their property taxes for the first time. And we're looking to do that again this year because we believe it's going to be a tight budget, but we believe we might have some leeway to make another cut this year.
Now, how are you going to make that cut when you told us that you are required to at least increase your budget by at least 0.7%?
Right.
That you have this extraordinarily high number that goes under mandated expenses. How are you going to make that cut?
It's sometimes you have to cut this with a scalpel and not an axe. You have to be very, very strategic in how you do it. There might be some areas.
You're not going after the arts, are you?
We are looking at every aspect of the county budget. You know, I have to say that everything's on the table at this juncture, Kim.
Yeah.
You know, last year we did not touch the arts and the culturals. That was
probably, you couldn't have touched them any further than they've recently been.
Well, they've been slightly increased over the past couple of years, and I understand the fact that the arts and the culturals are a part of our community. They are woven in many ways into the fabric of Erie County. We allocate about $6 million every year to the arts and the culturals. I'm not sure if we're going to change those numbers this year. Everything's on the table at this point, but we also need to be cognizant of the fact that this is tourism. This creates jobs, and this creates revenue for our community. So there's a lot of things that we have to balance.
Okay, good answer.
Thank you.
Good answer, sir. Now, there's this controversial fair share plan.
Yes. I want to applaud Ray Walter, who's running for county executive, for proposing this fair share plan. Because right now what happens is when we collect sales tax, and we collect about $450 million of sales tax each and every year that we are able to then allocate out to towns and to school districts. Well, that's based on a formula from 1977. Erie County has changed since 1977. The allocation formula that goes to the cities, the towns, the villages, and the school districts is dated.
How is it possible that they've let that go for so long?
Well, the formula is based on what? Is it based on population or just geographic area?
It's partially based on population. It's also based on the fact that the cities, the city of Buffalo, the city of Tonawanda, and the city of Lackawanna get a disproportionate share of additional revenue above and beyond the towns, the villages, and the school districts. This was something that was negotiated amongst the county and the cities in 1977. Well, that formula is dated, and I think it's heavily dated to the fact that 46% of residents lived in cities in 1977. Now it's 32%. So we need to look at this formula, and I give Ray Walter a lot of credit for proposing this, talking about something that needs to be reanalyzed, and we need to, I think, reallocate those sales tax monies in a more equitable and reasonable manner. For example, under Ray's plan, the town of Clarence would get about $1 million of additional sales tax revenue to the town, and the school district would get about another $1 million for the school district. That's just Clarence. So we need to have a sales tax sharing plan that is equitable and reasonable for all the residents of Erie County, not just disproportionately to the benefit of the cities of Buffalo, Tonawanda, and Lackawanna.
Well, give us a little lesson in civics here. That could be proposed, something like that can be proposed by the county executive.
Right.
But as the legislative body, can you, as a legislator, introduce a bill that would suggest this reallocation and then bring it up for a vote? And how difficult is it
It's going to be our
done?
recommendation to the county executive that he renegotiate this sales tax sharing agreement in 2016.
Who has the power? I mean, can
the
the
county
legisla-
executive has the power, but we're going to make a recommendation to him to renegotiate this, because right now, think of where the sales tax is generated. Sales tax is generated for the most part in the suburbs, and the suburbs are not getting an equitable share of the sales tax money that they're paying into Erie County. So it has to be negotiated, to your point, Phil, and it's a good one, between the county executive and the three cities. But we need to be looking at these type of reforms, because this is realistic and practical reform that can make a difference, particularly in our school districts, but also in each and every town and village in Erie County.
If the legislators vote on this and pass it, they send it to the executive? Is that what you're saying?
We would plan on sending that to the county executive.
And he could either sign it or reject it?
Hope that he would agree with us that this agreement needs to be looked at. And one other very important point, and I talked about this to the Buffalo News editorial board a couple of weeks ago when they interviewed me. I said, Ray has a proposal. Proposals are supposed to be negotiated and reviewed and talked about around a table of reasonable people. Doesn't mean this is black and white. This can be whatever shade of gray you want it to be, but we need to look at restructuring this sales tax sharing plan, because right now it is not equitably accomplished in Erie County.
And if the executive gives it a thumbs down, what's the recourse?
Can you override that?
We need to figure out legislatively what we can do. This is kind of different territory for us, because we haven't made these kind of proposals. So I don't exactly know what we would be able to do 100% if the county executive vetoed our proposal. We could make every effort to override it, and I would hope we would have the votes to do that.
Wow. I'm kind of shocked to hear that that's something that's been on the books for so long and kind of just looked over, and people grow so frustrated with their taxes and with their politicians. And I think things like that, those are the reasons why.
And this is meaningful reform. We're not talking about nibbling around the edges here.
Yeah.
We're taking a big bite, if you will, at the apple and trying to make some sweeping change. And in Erie County, I think the residents are looking for leaders, looking for people who are going to step forward and offer proposals that are sweeping change and are also 21st century changes, because right now we're stuck back in 1977.
And how did Erie County go from the scorched earth, red-green plan to a better balanced budget? Because certainly we're in a much better place.
I'll tell you, I think it's there's a lot of factors that have come into place. I think that the previous county executive, Chris Collins, did a wonderful job of lowering government spending. We had to do that first and foremost, and he reduced government spending by tens of millions of dollars. We also, in many ways, have seen somewhat of a resurgence, if you will, in Erie County. Sales tax numbers, although they're down this year, in the past have escalated to 3.5%, 4%, 5% increases year over year in sales tax numbers. That's in large part because of our friends in Canada who have come over here and spent so much money in our malls and in our restaurants and at our sporting events. So we've had the lowering of the government expenses, if you will, by lowering the size and the scope of government, increasing revenues, and also, quite honestly, not being willy-nilly in our spending decisions. And the legislature, again, we're the watchdog. We're the fiscal watchdog of how the money is spent. And I think we've been doing a good job of holding the reins in on spending.
Well, sounds good to me.
Interesting discussion.
Thank you for coming, Ed.
Absolutely.
I hope you come
it's great
back.
to be here. I'd be happy to be here anytime.
And
a lot of food for thought here, and we can go on for forever on
still
this
more
subject.
to talk about, so you'll have to come back. So
Thank you.
for more information on general Erie County, you can call 858-6000 or erie.gov.